Welcome to the Goodyear Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. We're excited to have you be a part of this important public process. Tonight, you will have the opportunity to address the commission on both non-agenda and agenda items. The agendas and speaker request cards are located in the back of the council chambers. You must fill out a speaker request card in order to address the commission. Please hand in your completed card to a city staff member. You may check the "I do not wish to speak" option on the card. This allows you to still voice your opinion on an item on the record without having to speak. In accordance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, please contact a staff member if you need any assistance. Public comment on a non-agenda item will take place during the citizen comment portion of the evening. These are items that don't appear on tonight's formal agenda. The commission secretary will call your name when it's time for you to speak. At that time, please approach the podium and tell us your name for the record. You'll have a maximum of 3 minutes. The timer is on the screens visible from the podium. Note that you may also choose not to speak if other speakers before you have said what you wanted to say. Shouting, cheering, and loud noises will not be tolerated, and violators may be removed for disrupting the meeting. Goodyear Planning and Zoning Commission meetings stream live on YouTube and online at goodyearaz.gov. Follow the city's social media pages so you don't miss out on all that's happening in Goodyear. Thank you for coming to this meeting and being an active part of your city. And remember, it's a great time to be in Goodyear.
Good evening. The Goodyear Planning and Zoning Commission for Wednesday, August the 14th, 2024 will be called to order. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the Secretary note the roll?
Commissioner Nepomuceno is present, Commissioner Smith is present, Commissioner Wang is present, Commissioner Hegedus is present, Commissioner Booth is present, Vice Chair Sambito is present, and Chairman Clymer is present. We have a quorum.
Okay, item number 1 is to approve the draft minutes of the last meeting. Will the Secretary please read the recommendation?
Approve the draft minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held on June 26, 2024. Is there a motion and a second for the staff recommendation?
Motion.
Thank you. I have a motion from Commissioner Hegedus,
I second that.
a second from Vice Chair Sambito. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, now it's time for citizens who would like to address the Planning and Zoning Commission on any non-agenda items. Are there any speaker cards?
I do have one for a non-agenda item. Richard Kartunen, did I say that correctly? Yeah, Kartunen, thank you. And just so that you're aware, the commission will listen to comments. The commission will listen to comments and may take one of the following: respond to criticism, request that staff investigate and report on the matter, request that the matter be scheduled on a future agenda. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. The screen, there's a little timer right there in front of you that will tell you how much time you have. Before you begin to speak, please identify yourself by clearly stating for the record your name and if you are a Goodyear resident.
I push a button here?
Oh, no, you're good.
Okay. So my name is Richard Cardin. I've been a Goodyear resident since 2021. The reason why I came here tonight is I happen to be a resident over at the Vistas of Palm Valley community homes. And there happens to be, here in the last month, groundbreaking for a 4-story hotel that's gone up outside our gate. So according to the city, this parcel was zoned as a C2 back in 1999. When I look at the city zoning ordinances, it doesn't appear that it follows the setbacks for a C2 building or the height limitations. So the height limitation should be 56 feet. The architect submitted a site plan for 59 feet. The current setback from the nearest residential houses is roughly 56 feet. I believe per the zoning code, it should be an additional 5 feet for every foot over 30 feet, minus any parapets or architectural elements. So you're talking like another 60 feet of setback. So I'm not exactly sure how this site plan got approved, but I believe it creates a fire hazard for the existing residences. If that building was to catch fire, you have the propensity for flame debris to fall into adjacent properties. And I mean, if that happens, who's liable for that? Is the city liable? I mean, I'm just asking the question for the sake of it. And some of the other residents have voiced a concern that there's a pedestrian walkway near the back of that parcel, and that basically the introduction of this hotel is going to introduce more pedestrian traffic, which otherwise shouldn't be there because it is a private community and gated. And I guess the last thing that I wanted to mention was that, you know, on the west elevation, there's going to be 4 stories, and there's going to be a hallway window on each floor. And I don't know, I asked this commission, you know, do you have any empathy for the existing homeowners to eliminate those windows so that you have some semblance of privacy? Because they bought those houses before this parcel was ever developed, and this developer's had 20 years to make it a hotel, and he's left it a dirt lot for since we moved in. So that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, well, thank you for coming here this evening, and we do have your contact information. I certainly don't know the answer to it right off the bat, and I'm kind of guessing that the planners wouldn't either without going back to delve into that. But we will have someone contact you with the answers to your questions. It may not be what you want to hear, but it's at least we'll get what the plan was at the time. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to have her bring it over. Yeah. We'll get all that from you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Sure thing. This is an opportunity for commission members to disclose any ex parte communications they may have prior to this meeting on any agenda items scheduled for discussion on this agenda. Anyone have any ex parte communications? Okay, having none, follow. And as a reminder for anyone out there, the Planning and Zoning Commission is a recommendation board for the council. The commission will vote on each item and forward their recommendation to the council. Council makes final decisions on all items. Agenda item number 2 is the El Cedro pad. I'm going to open the public hearing. Planner Plan Manager Christian Williams will present.
Good evening, Chairman Clymer and Planning and Zoning Commission. It's on, all right. Here before Christian Williams, Planning Manager, and I'm here before you this evening with a request from Alex Hayes to conduct a rezoning on a property within the city. The entire property is approximately 583.33 acres. However, our focus for today's conversation will largely be 42 acres that are within that 583 acres. The 42 acres is located within Central Goodyear, within an undeveloped portion of El Cedro, located at the southwest corner of 169th Avenue and Lower Buckeye Road. The property is currently zoned PAD, and it is located in the neighborhoods portion of the Goodyear 2035 General Plan Land Use Map. That property of the 42 acres is here, and the totality of El Cedro is approximately this area here. So zooming in specifically to the 42-acre parcel at the heart of today's conversation, you can see to the north is a city-owned property that is to be farmed and is part of the rezoning case. North of that farm is Lower Buckeye Road and the Canyon Trails 4 South development. To the south is Arabola Vistas, formerly known as Vita at El Cedro, and that is a single-family rental style community. To the west is Cotton Lane and the future Arizona State Route 303 loop corridor, as well as the remainder of the El Cedro residential development. To the east is a private dirt road for 169th Avenue, as well as unincorporated Maricopa County, which is predominantly large lot homes. So again, the 42 acres we're largely talking about are here today, and that is within the 583 acre El Cedro community. So the original El Cedro PAD was approved at the size of 616 acres back in 2007. And as you can tell by the title of this case, the 9th amended planned area development, there have been 8 formal amendments to the El Cedro PAD. In addition to the 8 formal amendments, the PAD has also had 3 properties separately taken out of the PAD. So really, in modern history, there have been about 11 changes within the original acres that make up El Cedro. On the left, you can see what the land use areas looked like back in June of 2018, the 8th amendment, and this was before the VITA Parcel 8 and Logistics 85 case on Parcel 8 were pulled out of the overall PAD. If this 9th amendment is approved, the map will look like the one on the right-hand side, and I will point your attention to Parcels 3 and 4, again, as our discussions will be largely taking place in this area. So the 9th amendment does administratively clean up the PAD as a whole. It clarifies that Parcel 5 and 8 are no longer a part of this new 9th amended PAD, as they are now their own PADs. There were also some errors caused by 2 rezonings which happened back in 2018, which inadvertently rezoned city property on Parcel 3B from a public facility district back to the mixed-use portions of El Cedro. This amendment will add public facility districts to all parcels within El Cedro, and that will allow us to maintain well sites and expand our own well sites within the city that benefit this community. Additionally, due to the age of the PAD, certain modern development standards were not included, such as how will the city address accessory buildings if a resident wants to build a gazebo or in their backyard. All parcels within El Cedro will now be assigned a corresponding underlying zoning district so that items like parking standards, accessory buildings, signage, lighting, and other items will be addressed as residents want to make improvements to their homes. The PAD also largely modifies Parcel 4, which has currently a land use of LDR1, or 60-foot wide by 120-foot deep lots. The amendment proposes 3 new land use districts within its place. Those land use districts are MFR, or multifamily residential, MDRA, or medium-density residential attached, basically townhomes, and LDR5, low-density residential, which is single-family residential homes. For development standards, the MFR zoning will allow for 19.9 dwelling units per acre and have an underlying zoning district of MF18. The applicant is requesting 40 feet of height as opposed to the typical 30 feet found in MF18. In order to justify the additional height, a 15-foot wide landscape buffer will be provided on the southern boundary of the multifamily parcel, and a green belt will be provided on the western side of the parcel, which I'll go to in detail a little bit later. The MDRA, or townhomes, will be developed with an underlying zoning of R1A, but lot widths in areas will be reduced to 30-foot wide and 2,400 square feet. This actually does align closely with the recently approved R1A zoning district that you all approved not that long ago. Additionally, with the underlying additional streetscape and amenity elements will be placed on that property to offset those reductions, similar to the R1A reduced standards. The LDR5 will be developed with an underlying zoning district of R14, but the lot depths will be 90 feet and the backyard rear setback will be 15 feet. This will be offset by additional amenities in the community and a programmed green belt that will be behind those homes, that will be between those homes and the county residential private dirt lot. For open space and connectivity, the development will continue that Cotton Lane Greenbelt Trail that starts nearly all the way up at Interstate 10. It will continue south of Lower Buckeye Road to this point. That will be a 50-foot wide landscape setback, which will contain a 6-foot wide concrete trail adjacent to a 4-foot wide compacted DG trail. So effectively a 10-foot trail to continue down from Target down to here, or from here all the way up to Interstate 10. On the north, in that this northern area here, there will be a 30-foot wide trail corridor with a 6-foot wide concrete trail and 1 pedestrian access point into the development. On the east, where I was mentioning behind the townhomes, there's an additional greenbelt. That will be a 60-foot wide greenbelt corridor with a 6-foot wide DG trail, and there will be at least 1 connection to the neighborhood and to the southern Greenbelt Trail between Arabola Vistas. So what we've effectively done here is there is a looping trail that will go around the entire community. For general open space within the development, there will be a 1.5 acre park in parcel 4B, a 2 acre park in parcel 4C. So 4B is here, 4C is here. The first of the parks shall provide a pool accessible to all residential homes within El Cedro and trail connections to those outer perimeter trails. Again, as we talk about some of the reductions in the backyards and the narrowing of the lots, they will be providing that pool for the residents to have that amenity. The multifamily development shall provide at least a 6,500 square foot clubhouse, a resort-style pool, a shaded seating area, a fitness center, an outdoor barbecue area, and turf areas. And the multifamily shall be developed with a minimum of 4 unique building schemes of 2 base colors and 3 accent colors and materials, and have a variation in roof height along their multifamily units. If 3-story buildings are built without the ends of those going down to 2-story or 1-story, they will have additional requirements to provide ground-level pedestrian features that will be required. And if the LDR5 single-family homes are built, they will be required to build 3 streetscape elements. If they develop with reduced side setbacks, so those 5 and 5s, they'll be required to provide 4 streetscape elements. The MDRA development will provide 2 streetscape elements, and that is those alley-loaded townhomes or townhome features. A neighborhood meeting was scheduled and held back in January of 2024. Approximately 10 members of the public attended, and they voiced concerns over water usage for a subdivision, school capacity issues, a desire for commercial businesses that provide personal services such as veterinarian offices and doctor's offices, hospitals, concerns about increased traffic, concerns about general trail connections, and concerns over an irrigation ditch that exists on that private property east of here. As a note, that irrigation ditch will remain untouched. Staff has evaluated the impacts of this proposed zoning on the greater community, and with no major concerns being found, staff recommends you forward an approval recommendation to rezone the property from planned area development to the 9th amended El Cedro PAD, which largely changes the development standards on that parcel 4 area as set forth in the draft ordinance and PAD. The applicant is here. They do have a presentation if needed. If not, I'm happy to answer any planning and zoning related questions you might have.
Okay, any questions for staff? Thank you, Christian.
I do have questions or comments. I'm not sure that they would be planning and zoning related, but being a resident, express my opinion here. Looking at the product that they've proposed, and maybe this is just a sample, but those apartments don't look like they fit with everything else. So I'm expressing my concern that it looks ultra-modern. It doesn't fit at all. I would like it to look more like what's going on there. I also appreciate the fact that the comment was made in the report about sound attenuation of the 3-story buildings, kind of buffering the freeway from the rest of the development as well as the single-family homes. But several of the buildings along the internal collector street there, the purpose of the sound attenuation is lost, and I would appreciate a little more distinction in the roof line of those buildings, as well as the buildings individually. If it looks like this, it looks like one straight across building. Yes, there's a lot of popping in and out, but I like more roof line deviation there. They've got 40 feet? We've given them an additional 10 feet. I'd like to see a little more roof movement in there. And a little more cohesiveness between the way the buildings look. So that's just kind of like where I'm going with the whole thing. But I do appreciate all the trails around it for the residents living there, the extension of the trail for the benefit of the entire city. All of the open space, it really looks, all of that I can really appreciate. That's kind of the extent of my thoughts on it.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mine is just for clarity. I was looking at this, and I'm not sure if it's 42 acres, 42.3, or 42.4. So which one is which? Just for accuracy perspective, okay? On this first page here, it says 42, and I look at the detail, it says 42.3, and I look at the proposed pad amendment, it says 42.4. So I would think we need to be pretty accurate in terms of this, okay? Also, I didn't see that conceptual thing in the packet or on the website itself, but nonetheless, that's not so important for me. On each one of those, what's the area on that? On each one of those segments, MFR, LDR5, NDRA, how many square feet or how many acres in each one of those?
I will have to defer to the applicant on that one.
Okay? So the other thing is, in the action report here, we're talking about deviating from the city standard, right? When was the city standard established? Do we know?
The modern zoning ordinance, I believe, was established in 1999.
Okay.
Check that. I believe it's 1999. We did create some additional small lot standards, and we have made deviations as early as a couple months ago.
Because this is pretty significant, you know. And I was going to ask that, is there any similar project approved in the past that really deviates from the city standard? Because in my view, what the heck are we having city standard if we're not going to follow it? And every time that we have a project, you know, there's a deviation. The lot sizes are smaller than city standard and things like that, okay? So that's my thing there. And then the other thing I have is, from where I came from in another state, at least the commission would try to have some idea what is the burden on the city of this project. This is a big project, because you're talking about 275% increase in density, from 168 to 463. That's huge. So I don't know if it's within the bounds of this commission, but I think I would like at least for me to have some idea what would be the financial impact to the city. Yes, there will be some revenue coming to the city once this thing start, but then, more importantly, once it's completed, what's really the burden on the city financially? Because this is going to impact services, utilities, all that stuff, right? Because as I said, if we're just increasing the density 10, 20%, maybe that's not significant. But a 275% increase in density, that's a huge impact on services that will be provided by the city. So that would be very helpful to know that. I mean, because once this thing is approved, and all of a sudden, the impact on the city, it's 468 households. That is a huge increase. Now you're going to have services, all this impact on schools and so forth. So, it would be helpful to know that. And then the open space that's being proposed here, I assume that that's the same even without the proposed changes, right? So now, based on this statement here, well, we're reducing the sizes of the lots and so forth, but we're also having larger open space. I don't see that here, okay? So it's not a one-to-one. So I know the required amount of space, open space, according to this, is more than 15%, which is well above the city requirement. So I just want to see if we can address those. So.
Couple.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Mhm. A couple of factors to consider in this. We did look at the water and sewer reports, and they do bear out this portion of the development increasing in density. And then the previous proposal here had like two small neighborhood parks. They did not contemplate the eastern trail corridor and expansion there, and then the Cotton Lane corridor coming down. So this development did, if you look at our existing standards, did enhance a lot of these spaces and group them in meaningful manners that would justify some of the reductions in sizes. And then when we do have developers or developments that request a reduction in city standards, there's always an offset requested. For example, the pool amenity that they have to provide, that would be an increase in a standard, and the amount of streetscape and amenity elements they would be required to add in addition.
Okay, because I'm just trying to convince myself about the compelling reason to approve this based on the undermining of the city standard. Because to me, the benefit of undermining that is purely for the developer and not for the city. So,
Wasn't the normal open space 15%, and that I see what, they're going to have 39% of that area?
Yes.
Yeah, so going from 15 to 39 for open space. So that's what caught my eye. I thought that was quite a bit, almost double open space for the offset that they're doing. And I guess it is your department's feeling that the amenities and the offsets that they're going to provide then equal out what they will get back in reducing the size. And the fact that that area is going to be right near the freeway, and I'm thinking, what else is going to go there, and who would be enticed to come in there with a different type of a plan to be that close to the freeway? So that's what I was looking at. Any other question for staff?
In driving by the last few days, looking at what's currently there and trying to visualize these developments and the 303 when it eventually goes through, is the 303 going to be raised?
Yes.
The whole way, not down like it is north of I-10 where it goes down and then comes back up? It's going to be raised?
The current plan that I've seen show the freeway being raised to go over Lower Buckeye Road, and then it will need to be raised to go over Yuma Road and Lilac Canyon Trails Boulevard. So there's some significant raising here, as well as significant ramps that will lead south onto Cotton Lane. So there's actually a significant sort of junction at this point where you have your off-ramps and on-ramps from Elwood going north onto the freeway, and then the off-ramps and on-ramps for southbound Lower Buckeye in this location. So this portion of the development of El Cedro will be separated from it's called the west side of the development because of the 303 and the Cotton Lane frontage roads.
I went to the ADOT website and saw their overview, but it's, it's computer generated. It's kind of hard to visualize it. And then as I was continuing to drive down Cotton and 303, looking at the current development that's around there, the townhouses and the apartments, and trying to place these there. And Maria, I'm kind of with you. Those don't seem to really flow design-wise together, but I understand the need to rezone that because I wouldn't want the large lots that's currently zoned by close to a 303.
And I'll put a caveat on these images. These images have not been vetted to determine if they meet our city design guidelines, but there are stipulations in place that will require colors, materials, and then a variation in roof height.
Okay. I would like to hear the applicant's presentation.
Excellent.
That's my next comment. Would the applicant like to speak? Probably we want you to.
Does this just click through the presentation here?
Yes. Great.
That does not appear to be it.
Give me 1 second.
It's on here if you need it.
And just as a reminder, you get 10 minutes, and I'll try and give you a heads up when you're about a
Okay,
minute or
thank you.
30 seconds out, without interrupting you, hopefully.
Is my clock started?
Not yet.
Well, we'll go ahead and wait, so I'm not repeating myself or getting off track. We'll wait for him to return. I think I can address some of those questions while we wait, though. I think Christian sort of did a pretty good job answering some of those concerns. Now, today is just a rezone, so all the imagery that you see, the site plan that you see, or the development plan is all conceptual in nature. Any actual development that comes before you or that comes to fruition will have to come before you for a site plan or residential design review, and that will include any development must abide by the City of Goodyear's design guidelines. So the imagery is conceptual, and that's not what actually will occur on the site. In terms of the deviations, Commissioner, the single-family lots that we're proposing here are actually larger than the single-family lots that are already approved within the LC Joe PAD. That's called LDR4 within the LC Joe PAD. These just have slightly different dimensions, but it's a very comparable unit mix, so it'd be pretty consistent with what's already permitted in the PAD. And at the end of the day, that is sort of the point of the PAD, is to allow for deviations when, you're providing an additional, there are other elements that the Goodyear ordinance requires the project to meet in order to achieve those deviations. Those are additional streetscape elements, connectivity elements, amenity elements. And so if that were to be utilized on this project, those additional elements would be required to be provided.
Early in the year, the city just approved the final plat, for part of the whole El Cedro 1C, right, on that thing. And those are larger lots, larger than the city standard. They're like 7,000 square feet each lot.
Yeah, and to be clear,
So what's the difference between that and this?
what we're establishing would be minimum standards. The ultimate
Right.
home builder could come in and build whatever they'd like if they exceed those minimum standards. Ah, there it is. Okay, thank you, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Alex Hayes, 2525 East Arizona Biltmore Circle. Here on behalf of the applicant, BET Investments, for Willow at El Cedro Ranch. And this is an amendment to the El Cedro PAD. As Christian mentioned, this is the 9th amendment to the PAD, or perhaps 11th if you count some other changes. BET Investments has been a property owner here in Goodyear at this location for about 20 years. They were actually the initial owner of the entire El Cedro PAD and established this PAD, and have been a very good steward of this project and a good partner with the City of Goodyear to bring the variety of projects within the PAD to fruition. And they've worked very hard to bring all online a lot of the infrastructure and the design of this project, project as a whole with the PAD and the various uses and elements of it. And I think they've had a good working relationship with the city to again, create a good opportunity for the city and the ultimate developers of these sites. When the PAD was initially approved in 2007, this site, parcel 4, which is the subject today, was assigned the low-density residential, LDR1, which was the lowest density within the entire PAD. And I think we all knew what happened very shortly thereafter in 2007 when the floor fell out of the housing market, and the housing market crashed around the country, but probably nowhere more so than the Phoenix metropolitan area. And so the property wasn't developed then, and it's remained undeveloped ever since then. But in the interim, there's been a number of different cycles, but a lot of substantial changes in circumstances around the property. When you look at this vicinity map, to the north, you have the Canyon Trails community. To the east, you have the county RU43.
And then to the south, across Elwood, you have industrial uses in the Goodyear Crossing Industrial Park, the Amazon facility. I'm sure you all are familiar with that use. And then Christian touched on the area between Elwood and the subject site was rezoned as Vita El Cedro. I think it has a new name now, but that was zoned out of the El Cedro PAD, but it's a 228-unit BTR development. It's currently under construction. I wish I had a more recent aerial to show you the progress they've made, but it's essentially horizontal multifamily. But then, the most important factor here is when you look to the west of the site is the incoming Loop 303, and it's that impendency of the Loop 303 that, that multi-lane elevated 800-pound gorilla. That's the impetus and the driving force of our request here today, because it's really a substantial change in condition from when this site was initially entitled. When you look at the El Cedro land use plan, you can see the parcel is located in the northeast portion of the PAD. It has that LDR1 land use classification. If you look at the west, just to the west, across where the 303 will be coming in, you can see those parcels 2 and 3, and that's that LDR4 land use category I mentioned, and that is a single-family detached product that's very similar to what we're proposing here today. Here you can see what has been the existing plan. This is the low-density, larger lot format, and this is a preliminary plat that was approved, but that has not attracted the market attention to develop, given the changing conditions. And again, I think there's nothing more important to discuss here as far as why this change is being requested than the dependency of the Loop 303. I think we should not be mistaken that Loop 303 is a very good thing. It's a good thing for the city of Goodyear. It's going to have a tremendous economic impact, bring a lot of economic activity, but we have to remember that it's still important to look at the future land uses that occur in the vicinity of that Loop 303 and certainly adjacent to it. Land use principles say you want your more dense uses to be in closer proximity to that transportation corridor, and so that is sort of the logic behind the land use mix that we're proposing. Here you can see, I think you might have looked at this when you looked at ADOT's website. This is a exhibit created by ADOT. It shows a kind of a flyover heading southbound on Loop 303. Passing the property on the left there is the Willowwood El Cedro Ranch. You can see it as Loop 303 moves west as it traverses the west side of the project and as it approaches Elwood. Here you can see what the future intersection will look like with Loop 303 and Lower Buckeye, where it's currently the intersection of Cotton Lane and Lower Buckeye. And you can see the site on the southeast corner. And the project timeline for Loop 303 on the right side of that slide. We're obviously in 2024 now, so we can move that. We are here, and construction is expected to commence next year. This is a government project, so we can expect them to be on time with no delays. But in any event, it's coming, and ADOT is moving forward with this project. The other important factor to consider is, something that's been discussed statewide in recent years is the need for more housing and more attainable housing. Statewide, we have a housing shortage of between 130 and 270,000 housing units, depending on which outlet you look at. The Arizona Department of Housing pegs that number at 270,000. And that housing supply shortage leads to an affordability problem. And in the city of Goodyear, the average median home price, I think my high school math teacher would be mad that I said average median, but I think that's median price of $488,000, which is almost 60% increase in just 4 years. So that creates an attainability problem. And so that affordability and attainability issue is not just a problem for residents, it's also a problem for attracting new employers, because one of the factors that employers look at when they're considering setting up shop in a new jurisdiction, they look at where their employees going to live. And if housing affordability is a problem, then they might look elsewhere. So it's an important economic development consideration. And so with that in mind, what we're proposing here today, and I'll try to move quickly through these as I think Christian's kind of covered some of this aspect, but is a housing unit mix on the property that has a diverse array of housing options for residents of the Willowwood El Cedro Ranch. And that includes multifamily in the northwest corner. You have that transitions to a single-family detached product, which creates a good land use transition away from the more intense use on the west side and the Loop 303. And then, and again, a good transition to the county RU43. And then you have your single-family attached product, what we're calling MDRA within the PAD, which is your kind of alley-loaded townhome product. Now, open space is going to be a very important component of this project. As has been discussed, 16.6 acres of the 42 acres will be dedicated to open space. That's 39% of the overall site, which is nearly 3 times the requirement in the Goodyear ordinance of 15%. 5.4 acres of that will be dedicated to amenity-used open space. And I think uniquely and importantly, the project will be surrounded by trails. There's a nearly 1 mile trail system with that 60-foot easement on the east side, 30 feet on the north, 50 on the west, and a 100-foot power line trail easement that will all provide pedestrian connectivity and multi-use trails, certainly on the south and west side, which will be open to the public and provide connectivity for the broader community. So I'll move through these individual development areas quickly, but this is parcel A. This is the multifamily development area. I know there's a question about the individual acreage sizes. This parcel A is 16 acres. And again, this development plan is conceptual, but we've designed our development standards kind of geared towards a development plan such as this. So this is how we would anticipate the site to be developed.
1 minute left.
But these are minimum standards, so it could be developed in a different way. Max height would be 40 feet. Again, will provide buffering from the freeway. 6.3 acres of open space. Each individual unit would have 60 square feet of private open space. Private amenities amenities for this development area include the clubhouse, pool, and activated turf areas. Parcel B is your single-family detached. Again, open space is an important component of this. They would have a shared pool with parcel C and activated turf areas and the trail area, which are access to the trail easements and the trail system, which is, again, an important component of the overall amenities for this overall project. And then parcel C, your single-family attached. This is your townhome product. This is, again, the conceptual imagery. So development that comes through would have to come through additional site plan and design review processes.
It's been 10 minutes.
All right, I think you and Christian both have made the point, and I think we understand it. Is there any questions for the applicant? Michael? Any questions for the applicant?
It may be a dual question, because Christian, you obviously referenced that potentially this would come back at some point. If we were to really stick to the idea, as I think Kent was going along the same line I was, I'd like to see more deviation in the height of the buildings for the multifamily as they move away from the freeway. I feel we've lost the sound attenuation. If anything, once you turn that building at an angle, once the sound hits it, it's going to the attached single family. So that totally takes that point away. But I appreciate the mix of uses. I really like that. I like the way you've laid them out. But I would also like to see those buildings along that Collector Street dropped. And whether it's a deviation, part of it goes from 3-story to 2-story, but I want to know that if this is the time we need to say that, or are we stuck with it if we don't say anything now?
You're stuck with it if you don't say anything about it now.
So then would the developer or your client be open to that more significant deviation of those buildings as we've pulled away from the freeway frontage?
So thank you for that question, and we did discuss this with staff, but part of the challenge with this site and having owned the property for as long as they have and made the significant investments in the infrastructure and all the work that's gone into the El Cedro PAD, there's a certain yield that needs to be as required of the property, and in order to get the number of units that are required with the height that we're proposing, that step down eats significantly into the type of buildings that can be offered there and the type of units that can be yielded.
So if the representatives of the residents feel one way and the developer feels the other way, then maybe it's not the appropriate product for the site. But I don't have to see what my colleagues, how they feel on that one. I do like the mix. I do like the way you laid it out. I appreciate all the open space, but I think there should be a little more deviation in the height of the buildings. Please excuse me, but we have seen so many 3-story, now going to 4-story units that all look the same everywhere throughout town, little deviation in architectural features. I need change. So,
As Christian mentioned, there is roofline variation that is required as part of the PAD that would be applicable to that multifamily development site. And we had initially proposed those buildings being oriented along the roadway to provide that sound attenuation, but at staff suggestion, we pivoted those so that there's, they're not, those units aren't looking over at the single family.
I don't disagree with staff's position
Yeah.
on that one.
Neither do we.
It would be towering over the neighbors across
We-
the
we
street.
agree.
I'm just asking, and I'm hearing that that's not possible, that second tier of units be shorter, but, thanks.
So if that's not possible, I mean, do you still require to approve this project as is without any of those changes? Because if the developer agrees to some of the changes that Maria suggested, I think it will behoove for us to make that part of the documentation as part of this approval or part of this stipulation.
Chairman, if I may, just to provide clarification, the commission has several options. You can forward a recommendation of approval as is. You can modify, add, or delete stipulations. So if you think a stipulation requiring what you're discussing would handle it, you could make that motion and forward a recommendation with an additional stipulation or modified stipulation. You can recommend denial. You could also recommend continuance, and it come back to you.
Thank you.
In speaking with the developer, I think one opportunity we have is for some more pitching of those roofs so they're not flat. So one stipulation you might want to propose is the roof heights of all multifamily residential buildings constructed within the property shall be varied and include pitched tile and/or tower-like tile elements in style similar to those roofs and tower elements found within El Cedro. That would then get you to at least having some pitched tile roofs throughout the project as opposed to flatter, boxy roofs.
I get the feeling everybody's looking at me. I'm still going to stand hard on, I would appreciate if it pulled down a little bit, but that doesn't mean that all of my colleagues feel the same way. I'm not saying, even if it was even a portion of the building, I mean, we've got the one that we just went through and looked at, was it Van Buren and Estrella, where they deviated from 4 to 3 on a part of the building. Could they not deviate from 3 to 2 for a portion of those buildings as they go along the street? I would prefer the whole thing to be 2. I get where they're coming from. If they can't do that, then my position would be, let's finish the hearing and take a vote and see where everybody comes with it.
It's a good idea.
Any other questions of the applicant? Are there any speaker cards?
I've not received any.
Anyone in the audience like to speak on this agenda item? I see a hand.
Okay. I can have you fill out a speaker card after, but just as a reminder, each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. The screens, the little timer up there will let you know how much time you have left to speak. And before you begin to speak, please identify yourself by clearly stating for the record your name and if you are a Goodyear resident.
Thank you. I'm Christy Deuce Romero, and I am a Goodyear resident. I wanted to just first start by, I'm an architect, and throughout my career, I've been involved in many of these multifamily residential developments, but I'm also a homeowner in an adjacent neighborhood, and I'd like to address one of the points we've kind of been talking about here. First off, I'd like to address the requested significant height increase from the city standard. The 30 feet to 40 feet, that 10-foot over standard, that's significant. The narrative justifies this by indicating it provides transition of development height and intensity from the elevated 303 freeway back to the existing lower density residential uses to the east of the property. However, the extra tall apartments buildings also line the north side, and that has not been addressed. The narrative, so that the north side of the property, which is directly adjacent to the single-family residential neighborhood to the north. And that neighborhood consists of 1- and 2-story residential, though they will tower over that residential property. The narrative completely disregards this neighborhood in its justification for the height increase. It does not give any justification for the height increase on the north side. As well, the architectural guidelines require multifamily buildings exceeding 2 stories shall step up and back from the street and adjacent properties. Narrative for the Willow at El Cedro states that they will not step up and back from the street and adjacent properties. Current Willow at El Cedro design has completely disregarded the adjacent single-family residential neighborhood to the north, and therefore I don't think this development design demonstrates compatibility with all adjacent properties. That was my major point.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. And will the Secretary please read the staff recommendation?
Recommend approval of the request to rezone the property to El Cedro 9th Restated Planned Area Development, May 2024, as set forth in the draft of ordinance number 2024-1601. Is there a motion for the staff recommendation or an alternate motion? Motion for denial, motion for continuance? And yeah, you'll have to make a voice vote motion. No software today.
We have to make a motion for the pitched roofs, or is that in the design phase?
That would be.
Christian?
If you want that, it needs to be
That'd be a
motioned.
stipulation, yeah.
All right, I'd like
But
to.
for, sorry, first you would, and Sarah, go ahead and jump in if I'm wrong, but first you would move to approve, and then you would amend the main motion to amend the stipulation. So, or add a stipulation, sorry. So if you would just go ahead and, I would recommend that you move staff's recommendation, because then you can discuss and propose a stipulation amendment. Does that make sense? Okay, thank you.
I'll motion for approval.
I have a motion from Commissioner Hegedus. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Commissioner Booth. The floor is open for commission discussion.
Christian, can you put up the site plan?
May I have the staff presentation or the applicant presentation, please?
It is. Do we have something, do you still have the site plan? Maybe that was, or the site exhibit, maybe that was at the beginning of the presentation where we can see the distance to the homes and the topography?
Yes.
There. Yeah. See, to me, on that north side, just for my fellow commissioners, the point that our resident stood up and made, I hear her point and I hear her concern because she's the local resident living there. But you can see the area from the light blue line all the way to the homes on the north side. There is a significant buffer there. And there's going to be a major road in between. So when people are getting off and on the freeway, that, in my mind, there'll be a lot of traffic. I don't see that as big of a hurdle. I understand and respect her concern. It's where she lives. I get that part. For me, it's still more, if we're building something and we're trying to go along the line of buffering, I'm asking for the 3, Christian, could you go back to the other one now? I'm asking for the 3, I think, purple narrow buildings, right there, right there on the east side. Just for the 3 purple buildings in there, possibly one or two of the green ones to be stepped down a little bit so it looks more rational as we pull away from the freeway. I don't know that there's a lot we could do on the north side. I mean, at that point, we'd be asking for all of the buildings on that collector street as well as the buildings across the north side to all be shortened. That, to me, is completely unreasonable of an ask. I mean, at that point, if that's what we want, we just have to deny it. So, to me, I was willing to work with that. Everything else,
So if the stipulation,
Can you get your microphone?
just for clarity, the stipulation that you're not really even
I'm
suggesting
saying
it.
something totally different from what Christian said.
No,
He's
I know.
just talking about
I want to make
pitching
sure
the
that I
roof.
understand what you're saying. It would be on those 5 eastern buildings, 1, 2 green, 3 purple, 5?
In my mind, at least the 3 purple ones in the middle, because you're still arguing that there's going to be more traffic on Buckeye, so they're trying to buffer, in theory, from Buckeye
Okay.
as well.
And then,
But I get the point.
Like the-
If we ask for all of them to be shortened, it's a
Yeah.
totally different project.
so, but would the minimum stipulation be that on, like, the back units of those buildings would then be 2 stories and
I was
maybe not the
open
entire
to-
building, but just the
I was
units
open to
facing?
them, I was open to them having a discussion on those, either the 3 purple, maybe one of the green ones, on the street side there,
Yeah.
the local street being
It
shorter.
would just be that whatever units on that phase.
Yeah, well, 1 or 2, whatever.
One-
But
yeah,
what
yeah.
I'm hearing from the
Okay.
the representative of the developer is they're not, that doesn't work for them financially. So it doesn't sound like that's an alternative stipulation that we could write. It sounds to me like at that point, if that's what we want as a group, we actually have to deny it. If the group, the consensus of the group is that we're just willing with them, my other suggestion on the frontage component, I would like to see more variation in the roof height alone, still 3 stories, but more variation, in addition to the buffering or the reduction of the roof on that interior. I'd like to see both. But what Christian was proposing is they're willing to do the roof height component. For me, it's the overall, let's shorten those on the backside. But I don't think that's a
And
possibility for them.
is that concern a design concern, or is it for the single-family detached on the other side?
To me, it lessens the burden on them. It's
On
kind of
the-
like, if you look at where those orange lots are relative to the purple units,
Yes.
look how close they are.
Right.
I just had them pull the map up for the topography on the north side. Our resident that's here, she's way far away from the apartments compared to these units here. I'm trying to give these units, the single families, a little bit more of a site variation. That was all I was trying to say, so.
What's the difference between those 2 colors, green and purple?
This is a conceptual site plan, so I'd have to ask the applicant, because this isn't an approved site plan.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing,
But in
Christian,
theory,
is
what
that-
they're showing is 3-story buildings that are different forms of multifamily that are
And
all
these may not
3-story.
be the shapes. When these lots are sold, somebody is preparing this for sale to a builder. When
Yeah,
these lots
I
are
think
sold,
that
they
this-
can come in with something different.
According to this, that they have not identified the end developer for this project, so
which then will come back to us.
why would it come back?
It would not
here?
come back to you, this
Well-
body,
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
because the entitlement would be fulfilled
okay.
at 40-foot heights.
So I guess the question is, do we want to take it to a vote? I mean, do we want to vote to approve or vote to deny? Where are we going to go with that?
I mean, for me, my biggest thing is really the significant deviation from the city standard. Number one is, as you said, is that height. That's pretty significant, going from 30 to 40 on this particular parcel, so. And then, I mean, deviating for city standard might be not unreasonable on a smaller scale project. And as you said, the city has approved smaller projects in the past that deviates from the city standard. But to me, this is a pretty significant project, you know.
But I think when we look, though, at where it is and where it's going to be adjacent to the 303 going in, that's, to me, a whole different ballgame than just being out by itself.
Right.
Because now, how many people are going to want to come and build and put a lot of money into something that may be hard to sell to the public just because of the possible noise and lighting and so on, so forth from a highway. I know we have that out at Pebble Creek, 303 goes by there. Some of the people out there are really having issues. The houses they bought now, they're looking at, and why do I buy this? Because all I see is that traffic going by on the 303.
So what you're saying is, with the proposed 303, the developer might have a tough time selling this thing?
Well, I think,
not concerned about that,
I think he's trying to, you're trying to get a reasonable priced home. As we just talked about, there's not, $488,000 is a median, which half is more and half is less. My kids can't even afford a house around here, but it's going to be tough, and now it's we're the 303, and they think they can build a product and actually make a little money off of it and get people into an affordable home. I don't want to live next to the 303, but there are some people, maybe that's what they can afford, and I'm not as hopped up about trying to hold it off because they've asked for a little more height. Having almost triple the amount of open space, to me, would be very nice if people had kids and so forth. And then they got pools, which they didn't have to build in the first place if they just build the standard product.
I actually like the use mix. I do feel that the apartments next to the freeway is appropriate. In fact, we've actually brought recently, I was just before you came, Ernie, staff brought to us recommendations going forward of what we're trying to accomplish as a city, and one of them was making sure that apartment or multifamily was adjacent to freeways. So in that sense, this actually fits that. That's one of our projected goals. What was that called, Christian? It was like goals for the next few years. We had goals for
General plan.
25.
Yeah,
General plan
General
2035.
Plan 2035.
It was the strategic action plan, and that was one of our strategic points, was to have new apartments placed adjacent to freeways. So in that sense, this is the perfect location
No,
for
I
that.
agree with that, yeah.
Obviously, I have my own concerns about it. Other than that, I like the mix. I like the additional open space. I like the opportunity for the smaller lots on the south, although when I looked at the unit size, both of them topped out at about 2,000, 2,200 for the larger ones. The prices aren't going to be that much different. But I like the opportunity for someone starting out to have a chance to buy their own home. I like that. So I really appreciate the different use options that they're providing. But
So how do we resolve this, the roof issue, the roof pitch?
If the issue is the height and the proximity to the single family, you could stip disclosures on the single family. You could restrict or add buffer requirements on the eastern boundary of the multifamily that requires it to be stepped down. You would need to look at a stipulation that suits y'all's needs.
Why don't you put that as a stipulation? If not, without that stipulation, I mean.
Is
we could-
that the consensus? Would everybody want to see a stipulation where we step down? Would it be better that we define which units, like which buildings that we'd like to see that happen to?
You would not be able to define units because this is conceptual, so
Okay.
if you're going to do that, the best way would be distance.
So you're going to do that as opposed to having different roof heights?
Right.
Well, I want both.
Oh, you want
I want
both.
both. The other one is, it keeps them all 3 stories. It just asks for more deviation in the roof itself as it moves along. I would like to see that units along that Collector Street step down as they move towards the single family. But if we're not specifying which ones, then that gives them a
Right.
stronger burden. It's anything along that street.
May I ask?
Yes.
So if we approve with stipulations, when it goes to council, if they want to approve without those stipulations, does it then come back? Or
No.
No.
You're making a
So we can make
recommendation.
stipulations,
Yes.
it doesn't
Stick.
impede
Yes.
the
Yeah.
process
We're
of
just
it
making a
moving.
recommendation
Yes.
to the council.
Yeah.
Council will-
Thank you.
which-
Ours
which they
just
have in the past.
recommendation.
They've
Yeah.
done what
Yeah.
their own things.
Yeah.
They may add more stipulation for what you know.
They've done that too.
Yeah.
They've done that too. Well, that would be my suggestion. I'd like to see the two stipulations, one for the roof elevation and for the variation in the roof height. Significant elements such as towers, whatever, added to it, pitch tile, and then the units not adjacent to the future 303 on the west side of that collector road. I'd like to see them step down as they reach towards the single family.
So you need to move to the first stipulation to see if they get a second on that,
Okay,
and then you need to move for the
Can,
the second stipulation, because you don't want to put them both together.
Right.
Somebody might-
okay,
might not get it.
okay.
can you just say that, since you cannot identify any of those buildings, just the building,
What Christine was saying is that you would identify.
Along
like,
that
within a
street.
that's what I'm saying, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, on this side or on that side, right?
okay, well, I don't even know how far they are now. I don't remember.
What distance that would be.
Okay,
He seems to understand what you're saying.
okay.
You want to do the variation route?
Okay, so let's go ahead. I would propose, or I move that we add a stipulation to vary the roof heights on all of the multifamily buildings and add pitches to them and tower elements if necessary.
I second.
Yeah.
Is that, you've combined the two, so.
No, no,
No.
just the roof, just the roof height,
Like
and
what
not
they're
height,
doing
but
right
just
now.
the pitch and the deviation in the roof height
Okay.
for the three-story building.
And may I just clarify,
Sure.
staff can wordsmith that between now and council?
Please, I would appreciate that.
Okay, so I have a motion from Vice Chair Sambito and a second from Commissioner Nepomuceno. Can I have, we'll do all in favor?
Of the
Or,
stipulation.
so what's going to happen is you're going to
stipulation.
add this stipulation, you have to add the other stipulation, and then we can vote on the entirety
Right.
of that. So, okay. Try not to confuse myself as well. All right, so I'll do roll call for the first stipulation, the vary roof heights on all multifamily. Commissioner Nepomuceno,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Wang,
Aye.
Commissioner Hegedus,
Aye.
Commissioner Booth,
Aye.
Vice Chair Sambito,
Aye.
Chairman Clymer.
Right?
Okay, that motion has been approved. If you would like to make your other motion for the other stipulation.
Go ahead, Christian.
I'm trying to capture the conversation. I believe the applicant would be amenable to something like, any building within 100 feet of the eastern edge of the MFR development shall step down to a two-story structure along the edge of the building. So what that would do is if there's a building that encroaches within 100 feet of that edge line, on the edge that's adjacent to the road, they would drop that down to a second-story height building.
How far is that setback currently from what's shown, I believe, as the right-of-way line?
From the right-of-way line, the building setback right now is 30 feet. So if a building is built within 100 feet of the right-of-way line, just that eastern section of it would drop to a two-story. So for example,
Are
if
they
there-
able to take that burden, the two green ones and all the purple ones? I mean, that still seems like a lot. I was only thinking of but you said there was no way to limit it. So I'm thinking anything on the collector that's not fronting Buckeye or 303.
So, for example, if those buildings were all 24 plexes, you would lose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 units.
Yeah, just that first unit fronting would go
The
down.
first unit fronting on the third story.
I think that would make a significant difference in the way it looks.
Which one is that? Would you point that? I don't know.
It would be,
I'm trying to visualize it.
you see the road that goes through?
not supposed to do that.
Oh, sorry.
All of these ones,
Yeah, okay,
the first unit would drop.
So
okay.
rather than being
Right.
three stories on that backside, it should be
looking
two.
at it, most likely the pitches of the roofs would kind of tip a
Okay.
little or vary more. So it wouldn't be as abrasive to them.
Yes.
Because on the right is the single-family homes,
Yes.
right?
Right, right.
That's,
Yeah. Makes sense, yeah.
I'm gonna put that stipulation out there too.
So,
Chair, if I may clarify, that would, what that would include is, for example, if all the buildings along that internal collector road, let's assume they're all 24 units in a building, 3 stories. The 2 units closest to the road on the 3rd floor would be eliminated. So the building would be blocky on one side, drop to a 2nd story as you get closer to the road.
that's
Just
exactly the same as what,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, but they could address that with pitching on the roof on that. It's not going to look as severe if they're doing roof elements on the side.
Excuse me.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead, because I
I want to make sure we
If it-
we
no, if it's gonna
understand
work
where
or
we're
not.
talking.
If it's not going to work, then.
Hi, I'm Scott Moore. Sarah knows me.
And if you wouldn't mind either,
2004.
yeah, we just need you at the mic, because otherwise they can't hear.
Hi, I've been with this project since 2004, so originally worked with the city and sold the 303 right away to them when I had an approved PAD and had to go back and rebuild the whole thing and then went into the crash of the market. So we've had some really tough luck on this one, including a combination case with McFlood after all of that and had to redo it a 3rd time. So we've done this about 3 or 4 times now. The reason that we went in with those units up against that collector and turned them is because of the recommendation from staff, which was trying to do what you're talking about is to bring more relief to that. But keep in mind, that is interior to our project and not as much of a adversity to the perimeter of the project. So we're aware of that as we go in and sell it, and we are builders as well. We're developers and builders. BET Investments is Bruce Toll of Toll Brother Homes. So I'm trying to understand what you're saying. The purple ones, you want to see roof variation, or you want to see one of the units removed? And then
I'd like to
step-
see, well, ideally, to start with, I'd like to see the 3rd floor shaved off of them, but I get what you're saying, so I'm trying to
I mean, but
come-
we offered 39% open space so that we could do
Oh,
that.
I get that. I get
So, I mean,
that.
we can go back and add more units and take away open space and then do that.
No.
So,
I'm trying
I
to
mean,
get to a point where I can approve it.
Yeah.
Are you able, instead of taking the whole 3rd floor off, go the direction and shave off the unit along the end there so that our new residents in your project don't have people on the 3rd floor looking across the street into their backyard?
correct.
It's your own resident.
Oh, we were going to do that anyways. Yeah.
But you might want to.
That would be on our public report. I mean, we could stipulate, and what Sarah was saying, and we were planning on doing that anyways through our public report, was to notify everyone that these are 3-story units going in here. I mean, we're selling it and developing it all at the same time. The parcel C is the one that we probably won't build, but the other ones. To be clear, you want to see a unit removed so that it steps down to a 2-story, back up to 3.
A little more deviation,
Yeah.
so it's not as.
And how many of, every single one, or just
All the way along the
25% of them? I mean, if you want to see variation, that's going to be,
On the, only, like Christian was saying, I'm comfortable with what he suggested, the first 100 feet there from the street.
I think 100 feet gets into, that's going to take out 2 units.
Okay, then just the first unit, whatever footage that comes up to.
So anything within 100 feet.
If a building is within 100 feet,
for
then
one
that
unit.
first unit goes up.
We can word it that way, Sarah,
I
to,
think so, yeah.
That, you could?
Yeah, so
Okay.
that
It
you're
wouldn't
only
be
losing
100
one
feet of
unit.
units, it's that one
If you have
unit
a,
of
if you have a
buildings.
building within 100 feet of wherever it is, then.
the first unit on
The
that
first unit on the
end
end
drops
will
the
be reduced
floor.
down to 2-story, and that works?
And then if you're doing, like, you still have to address the roof, ideally, it's not just a flat roof, because
Yeah.
we're trying to do
Right.
some type of Mediterranean thing here. You buffer the roof slightly too, visually, So the people across the street, yeah, most of them, like you even said, they're mostly gonna be 2 stories anyway. They're looking straight at their neighbor in the apartment, and yeah, there's a roof above them, but they got one too.
Yeah.
It's not as invasive, and there's a lot less distance between the single-family homes across the collector street than anything around the site.
Okay.
I like that, I'm totally good with that, I hope you're okay with it.
I can work with that.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, so now we gotta write it.
That everything within 100 feet had to be reduced, and that's what I was going to take out.
As long as they can fix it, I'm good.
You might want to clear, we'll chat after.
Yeah, they
think
can
I
smith
know
it
the
for
answer.
me.
So any building that's
Because at
within
the end, it
100
might
feet.
even come out that.
If it encroaches, the
If it
top floor on the
encroaches,
third floor of the
top
first
floor of the
unit
unit
is gone.
comes down.
Yep,
That's what it is.
yep.
Is
So,
that your motion?
yes, consent.
Yeah.
Is it like that?
So I am going to move that any building, any multifamily building on that, fronting that collector street within the first 100 feet, other than the buildings fronting the freeway, future freeway, or Buckeye, would step down to a 2-story on the first unit adjacent to the street.
That's really the key.
That's-
Those 5. You're
Yeah.
talking about 5 of them.
It's going to be 5 now. It's going to be 5 now.
6.
But I did take
She-
out Buckeye, Lower
Yeah.
Buckeye and the freeway.
It's that distance, it's first unit to.
Those-
Yeah.
Okay.
Whether it's one
She's
or
not talking about that one. She's talking about the 3 purple on the interior.
And the 2
And the 2 green ones
Yeah,
above it.
the 5 on the
So
collector.
it's the collector road that separates the single family from.
Exactly.
From the multifamily.
Okay, so this, from this zoning district to this zoning
Right.
district, we can make that work.
Okay, you can fix my phrasing.
I will fix your phrasing.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
I
It's
move that.
between the MFR and the LDR5.
Yes.
But are you talking about that green one on the end?
Not fronting Buckeye, Lower Buckeye.
If it's within 100 feet. If this
Or
is
fronting
further
Cotton
than
Lane.
100 feet,
Or fronting Cotton Lane?
No, nothing fronting Cotton Lane or Buckeye.
yep,
I
it's just,
specifically
it's
asked.
basically, if we're looking at a zoning district map, anything within 100 feet of the MFR and the LDR5,
Yeah.
if a building encroaches within that 100 feet, the end units of that building would need to be at the second-story line.
Yes, that's it.
All right. So I've had that as a motion from Vice Chair Sambito. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you. Commissioner Booth seconds. I will do another roll call vote for this motion to add the stipulation. So Commissioner Nepomuceno?
Aye.
Smith? Aye. Commissioner Wang?
Aye.
Commissioner Hagedis?
Aye.
Commissioner Booth?
Aye.
Vice Chair Sambito?
Aye.
Commissioner Clymer? Chairman Clymer?
Since I heard an okay from back there, I'm going to go ahead and say aye.
Okay. So now we have the amended motion, the original motion. 2 stipulations have been added. We now need to vote on the motion. So I will do one more round. Give me just a second.
This for the whole project, right?
This is to approve with those 2 added stipulations.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Nepomuceno.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Wang.
Aye.
Commissioner Hagedis.
Aye.
Commissioner Booth.
Aye.
Vice Chair Sambito.
Aye.
Chairman Clymer.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Recommendation of approval with the added stipulations will be forwarded to City Council for the August 26th meeting.
Thank you very much.
Okay, agenda item number 3 is the zoning ordinance text amendment for convenience and automotive uses. We've heard this before, I believe, but we'll hear it again. Christian, go right ahead. I'm going to open the public hearing.
Good evening, Commissioner Clymer. Christian Williams, Planning Manager here with the City of Goodyear. Many on this, in this conversation will remember this. This might be their 3rd time hearing this, but that is okay because it's transparency to the public. The overarching aim is to streamline the processes and save time, proactively enhancing our efficiencies. This entails exploring administrative solutions and staff-level adjustments within policy framework, thus minimizing the need for future Planning and Zoning Commission meetings as well as City Council involvement. And numerous cities are going to more administrative process. Tonight's conversation is particularly about gas stations. It is about gas stations. We will also in this conversation be clarifying convenience stores and defining what a truck stop is within our definition and clarifying where those would be permitted. And again, this is the follow-up to the conversation we had in a work session back in March of 2024, and an ordinance that was recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission back in April to the council, but they opted to receive that in different chunks, so storage was approved as a separate. This would be the gas station component. And as a reminder, for gas stations, they may be currently considered in C1 and C2 zoning districts with a use permit. And the zoning ordinance text amendment recommends the removal of the use permit process. Gas stations, if approved, would be permitted within C1, C2, I1, and I2 districts. The text amendment also clarifies that convenience stores, which are small square footage retail facilities, would be allowed in C1 and C2. For gas stations, if they are not reverse-oriented and are within 300 feet of a planned intersection, they would require a 2,500 square foot plaza with shade structure, similar to the Circle K over on McDowell and Pebble Creek Parkway. Gas stations would also not be permitted within 200 feet of a residential zoning district or home if it's platted, or separated, unless it's separated by a public roadway, canal, railroad from the residential. And the use would be allowed with a 50,000 square foot retailer by right, such as a Safeway or a Fry's grocery store. And no more than 2 gas stations would be permitted within a quarter mile of an arterial to arterial intersection. And no more than one of the, they'd have to be placed at separate quadrants. So you could have 2 at an arterial to arterial intersection, so long as they are catty corner or across the street from one another, not 2 on one corner, maximum of 2. We'd also clarify that gas stations do permit electric vehicle charging. Semi-truck fueling would be prohibited in C1. It may be requested with a use permit in C2 if that C2 property is within 300 feet of a freeway, major highway, major truck route, or industrial zoning district. They would be permitted, semi-truck fueling would be permitted in I1 and I2. And by way of example, with what I mean by a use permit in C2 is if you have a commercial corner adjacent to industrial development, for example, let's say MC85, that might be an appropriate place for semi-truck fueling because it's in proximity to a major truck route. A truck stop may be requested with a special use permit only in I2 if it is located outside of the Luke Air Force Base or Phoenix Goodyear Airport 65 DNL lines. With that overview, the proposed text amendment, staff is recommending you forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council to amend Articles 2, 3, and 4 of the zoning ordinance. If this is approved, the next steps would be for a work session with council on September 9th. That would be published once confirmed. And based on the work session, potential adoption on the September 23rd meeting or return to P&Z if there are additional recommended changes. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the staff? Seeing none, are there any speaker cards? What?
Well, the only concern I have is, so right now, if it's in I1 or I2, right, they require a use permit, right?
Yes.
And if they require a use permit, then you do a public hearing to solicit public input, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. So by doing this, you eliminate that. So when a proposal comes in and want to do a gas station on a I1 or I2, this commission is out of the picture. There's no public hearing. So in that case, we're disenfranchising the public to make an input on that proposal.
What this proposal does is codify any stipulation that would have been placed on that property had it come through the public process.
I mean, to me, isn't it the gas station operation is commercial, right?
Yes.
So, and I1, I2 is all industrial?
Correct.
So why automatically put, in other words, if someone want to put a gas station on the corner that is zoned I1 or I2, well, why not change the zoning on that, make it C1 or C2? That way you're consistent. Because to me, it defeats the purpose of having this different zone.
Correct. There are many uses that do carry between the different zoning districts, and really I1, I2 is about intensity of use. So if you think about a gas station and its intensity, typically that is much less than what you would get when you're talking about potentially a 1 million square foot industrial structure.
I mean, I read this, and I said, okay, that's a good idea. That's the only thing that caught my eye. Why make it automatic permitted use on I-1 or I-2 as opposed to a use permit?
I think it is. It's just you have to use permit for truck stops in I-2.
Correct. Right now, in all zoning districts, it's a use permit.
But
Yes. If I'm following your question correctly.
No, what I'm saying is, if it's on it's a zone C1 or C2, then it makes sense to me that it's a permitted use. There's a difference between permitted use and use permit.
C1 and C2 right now, though, it requires a use permit.
Right, but what you're saying is, if it's on a C1 or C2, we're changing that to make it just a permitted use.
I think, if I may try and address your question, or your statement, and our zoning ordinance isn't a clear, they call it a Euclidean zoning ordinance, but we have some remnants of it, but basically, there are some zoning ordinances, it's a common thing to do, where the higher intensity use allows everything below it. So a commercial district would allow residential, an industrial district would allow commercial and residential, and higher, an I-2 would allow I-1 and commercial, and, you kind of allow everything below it. Ours isn't like that, it is separate, but we do have many of the uses, as Christian was saying, that are listed in both, because it's kind of following that in some way. So, and in the industrial district, offices are permitted use, even though office is more of a commercial type use. And there are some other types of uses that are permitted. So that's why we were, so it is saying this commercial use would also be permitted in industrial, following that same standard. I just wanted to make it clear that this wouldn't be the only commercial use that would be permitted in industrial, because our industrial district isn't strictly industrial uses.
Can I just clarify, because it seemed like there was some confusion, so.
Can you turn on your
What you-
microphone, Sarah? Sorry.
What he said was, in any gas station could go in C1, C2, I1, I2. That's a permitted use. You could have truck fueling in, let's see.
I-1 and I-2.
I1 and I2. You could request it in C2, but that would require a use permit. Then there were use permit requirements for a truck stop. So there is a number of.
Those are two different things.
Right, they're different things.
I
And
understand
think,
that.
yeah, so I wasn't sure if that's what you were getting at, that we were allowing gas stations in C1 and C2, but not industrial. That's what I thought I was hearing you say.
I might also add, Ernie, when did we start doing this, Christian? When they were all together? Was that not February?
March of 2024.
Okay, so March of 2024, before you were sitting on the commission, Christian brought to us a large package with, I want to say, 3 different use types. Gas stations was
Storage
one.
facilities.
The storage facilities were another. And what the goal was, is to provide stipulations in the code
Right.
so that they don't come to us, so that if all of these, say somebody comes with, anybody coming with a gas station in this case, they have to meet all these requirements. If they meet all those requirements, they can work on what it looks like with staff, and we don't have to participate.
No, I understand
If
that.
they don't want to meet the requirement, then they still have to come and see us.
Oh, okay.
That's, I mean, am I correct
That's what
there?
I'm missing.
If they have something, if they're taking something
Yeah.
way outside the box of
Okay.
what we've already discussed, so
That's what I'm
in
missing.
essence, if I'm hearing what you're saying, your concern is that we've been disenfranchised. But by all the effort that Christian and the team have made since March, it went from us to council, and we all agreed saying, yeah, as long as they meet all of these particular requirements, like where they're going to put the gas stations, and if they're going to face inward or they're going to face outward. We talked all about that in March, and now what we're trying to do is resolve just the gas station component, but in essence, we've not been disenfranchised. We've actually already said, if you do all these things, we're okay with it.
No, that's what I'm
Does that
trying to.
make more sense?
That's what I'm trying to
Okay.
clarify. You know, it's not always automatic. So, yeah, no, that's what I'm trying to clarify. I apologize if you misunderstood.
No worries at all, no worries at all.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
any more questions? Any speaker cards?
I've not received any.
Anyone want to speak? I don't see anyone to speak. You haven't introduced our new, well, later, but right at the end. Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing. Will the secretary please read the staff recommendation?
Recommend approval of a request to consider a zoning ordinance text amendment to Articles 2-2 definitions, 3-3 commercial districts, 3-4 industrial districts, 4 regulation of particular uses, and 4-2 uses requiring additional evaluation of the City of Goodyear zoning ordinance related to certain convenience uses, self-service storage facilities, automotive repair and automobile service station, gas stations, being permitted uses in certain zoning districts subject to newly adopted regulations without the need for use permits or special use permits as reflected in the proposed ordinance 2024-1613. Is there a motion for the staff recommendation or an alternate motion?
I move approval.
I have a motion from Vice Chair Sambito.
A second.
Oh, who got it? I'll put in Commissioner Wang, seconded. Floor is open for commission discussion.
I like the concept because it saves time.
Oh, yes.
And it streamlines the process. So, and it also, it doesn't waste the time of the commission too,
Yes.
so, yeah.
Absolutely.
We've done this with other things like drive-throughs and so forth. Yeah.
Streamline everything.
Well, I said, I'm just trying to catch up. I'm new to this commission, so.
It was unfortunate you didn't have the context. I recognized that as we were all discussing, was, you weren't here, you didn't know what we all went
Yeah.
through, so.
Okay.
Okay. I will do a roll call vote. Commissioner Nepomuceno? Aye. Commissioner Smith? Aye. Commissioner Hegedus? Aye. Commissioner Wang?
Aye.
Commissioner Booth?
Aye.
Vice Chair Sambito?
Aye.
Chairman Clymer?
Aye.
Motion passes. Recommendation of approval will be forwarded to City Council.
Are there any staff communications? I'll bet there is.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, not to completely put her on the spot, but I did want to introduce to you, we hired a new deputy director. Her name is Kim Bradford. She was kind enough to sit in on this meeting. It's her third day. And just to tell you a little bit about Kim, we're talking about the term, she's now a boomerang employee. We have a few of those. So Kim did work for the City of Goodyear previously. It's been a few years, though, and we were able to get her to come back. She's an exceptional employee, so we're really excited to have her on our team. So stop by and say hello to Kim.
Anything else? Okay, the next Planning and Zoning Commission meeting will be held on September the 11th, 2024, in the council chambers. Hopefully, the microphones will be fixed. Meeting is adjourned.